President Trump and Joe Biden each held dueling town hall meetings on different networks. But not only were they each having their own town hall, the formats couldn't be more different. Joe Biden was engaged in almost a David Frost PBS laid-back interview, sitting in a nice, comfortable chair, stand next to him with some water and just a casual, friendly atmosphere. And we even find out that there were Democratic plants in the audience asking questions that Joe Biden already knew the answers to because he probably already knew the questions. On the flip side, over at NBC, Savannah Guthrie was on the attack. In fact, it wasn't really a town hall. It was actually the president debating Savannah Guthrie. And of course, NBC had come under fire by critics that, how can you have a competing town hall against ABC? They had already asked Joe Biden first. Why would you do this? In fact, many of the NBC employees were upset, including those within the news division. And no doubt, Ms. Guthrie was under some pressure from her liberal friends to make sure that she made a statement and don't let the president have an easy night, even though he's trying to horn in on what Joe Biden was trying to do. Well, first of all, it wasn't the president who asked NBC, it was NBC who asked the president. That said, last night really revealed why people, and I'm going to say this, especially women, love Donald Trump. Well, let's jump right in. So, we have these dueling town halls. Joe Biden having his own inside. You know, they've got the wallpaper behind him. You know, we the people. You know, they're trying to make this look presidential. You know, the funny thing is Barack Obama used that same setting numerous times. If you want to think of anything more unoriginal, just think of Joe the plagiarist Biden. Now, of course, the optics of the Trump town hall are coming under all types of scrutiny, which means they worked. See, the left and the critics wouldn't be saying anything about those visual optics if they didn't work. It was outside in Miami. You saw one of the Miami bridges. It was just a beautiful Florida evening. I lived in Florida for 9 years. A beautiful Florida evening. And there was a woman just off the left shoulder of President Trump sitting in the background, wearing her mask and nodding her head in agreement with him. And social media blew up. Who was this woman? She was an obvious plant. Well, today she's been doxxed. She's been outed. We know her name. And they're having a hard time really wanting to land the punches on her that they want to land because she's a person of color and she does work for Latino media. Yeah, go ahead. Roll out the usual attack lines on her. See how far that gets you. But on the flip side, over at the Biden interview, and I won't even call it a town hall, we find out that there were actual plants. And I just watched enough of the Biden town hall to know as I'm watching these people read their very scripted questions. Mr. Biden, you said that all blacks should vote for you. Aside from that, what else do you have to say to Black America? What? Who talks like that? Hint, no one. So it was obviously a scripted question. And, you know, one of the things that moderators on other channels were saying after these town halls was, you know, I got to say, you know, the vice president, Joe Biden, he was really on his game tonight. You know, he had very clear answers. He was very detailed, yada, 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 yada. Well, you know, it's pretty easy when you already know the questions before you have to give an answer. You think maybe there was a script? Who knows? Did we check him for an earpiece? Was he reading a teleprompter? You know, he kept looking off like this, supposedly up into the crowd. You know, was there a giant screen prompter up there? Who knows? What we do know is that was anything but spontaneous last night, and there were actual Democrat plants. That's now being outed and released. These are people that are tied to the Biden campaign, have given money, they were known, and ABC never disclosed that. On the flip side, the president in Miami was dealing with people who were Republicans, Democrats, and undecided. But some people are criticizing not only this woman sitting off to his left, nodding her head, but that these people were kind of fawning all over him. Well, were they really? Let's break it down. Let's take a look.
Did you take a test on the day of the debate, I guess, is the bottom line?
I probably did, and I took a test the day before and the day before, and I was always in great shape, and I was in great shape for the debate. As president, I can't be locked in a room someplace for the next year and just stay and do nothing.
After contracting COVID-19 yourself, has your opinion changed on the importance of mask wearing?
No, because I was okay with the masks. I was good with it, but I've heard many different stories on masks.
If you listen to the head of the CDC, he stood up and he said, you know, while we're waiting for a vaccine, and he held up a mask. You wear this mask, you'll save more lives between now and the end of the year than if we had a vaccine.
I did a monologue about this a couple of days ago, and I don't want to reiterate all that, but I will say this to the former vice president and future nothing, Joe Biden. You're quoting the CDC, and they themselves are all over the place. In fact, in recent days, it was the CDC who released a report stating that 85% of all new corona cases are people who have been wearing masks. They have been following the protocols. They have been social distancing. They are taking baths and hand sanitizer. I asked a question a couple of days ago. It's one of those aha moments, like, well, this is so obvious. Why haven't we been asking this for months? Way back in March, we were told if we wore masks for 2 weeks, we could flatten the curve. And 2 weeks has become 8 months. And we're told if we keep wearing it through the end of the year, we will save millions of lives. You know, it's an amazing thing, isn't it? That you can make a statement like that. You know, Joe Biden holding up his mask saying, you know, the more we wear this, the more lives we're saving. How do you actually know that? You pick a number. See, I could say if everyone in America would just watch my video channel, we could save 5 million lives. And if everyone in America started watching my channel and 5 million people didn't die, they would say, wow, see that? Watching Pastor Marty saves lives. Yeah, just pick a number. So when the CDC says we're going to save millions of lives, well, how do you know? How do you actually know that? Because this was my aha question. If masks work, and we've been under these mask mandates in some places for months on end, despite the renegades like me who refuse to wear them, let's be honest, most of America is wearing the dumb thing, especially in lockdown states. If the masks were working, why are the numbers still going up? Bump, ba-dum, bump. And don't tell me about, you know, people are getting together and they're violating social distancing. You know, they've been getting together in the streets, looting and rioting and burning all summer long, and we were told that was perfectly fine. We watched the fans in Los Angeles pour into the streets after the Lakers won the championship. See, apparently in Los Angeles, worshiping and gathering to worship and to sing and to cheer apparently is no longer a problem. It just depends who you're worshiping. Can't do it in the church, but you can do it in the streets to the pagan god of the LA Lakers. So, Mr. Vice President, see, this again just shows you to be a rank amateur. And if you were actually being grilled properly by a real journalist, George Snuffleupagus might have pushed back and said, you know, Mr. Vice President, it's easy for you to be this armchair expert. You're not in the hot seat having to actually make any real decisions right now regarding coronavirus. You're just the candidate. So you get to stand off at the side and snipe at what the president has done. And can we be honest that the president is surrounded by so-called experts? And you've got the Fauci gang that are telling him one thing about masks, and there's a whole nother group of doctors telling him something else. And there is no concrete, verifiable, certifiable, these things absolutely guaranteed to work. Sorry. Well, now let's just get back to observing what happened last night at these town halls. The president, and again, talking about what he did regarding masks and corona and how he's handled things, he talked about you have to lead. A leader leads. And I'm going to explain this is why women love him.
I knew it was a big threat. At the same time, I don't want to panic this country. I don't want to go out and say everybody's going to die.
Isn't there a middle ground? You don't have to mislead, but you can.
No, there's not a middle ground. You have to be safe, you have to be vigilant, and you have to be smart.
Now, keep the president's answer in mind. We got to cover a couple other things because we're going to come back to this. I'm going to show you this is why women, even liberal women, like Donald Trump. Oh, they love to hate him. They love to talk about him, but in reality, they wish they had a man like that in their lives. And before you going on a sexist rant, just hear me out. See, I deal with some of this in a different realm in the church world. Right now, there are a whole lot of churches that don't even have to be closed, but they've chosen to be. And now some, they're doing these, staged reopenings. We're just having church at our church. We're just doing church like we've always done it. But now it's the latest new fad in evangelicalism is church by appointment. You got to go online and register your seat like you were going to the movies. And can you imagine if you didn't know that was what you were supposed to do and you were just a visitor and you showed up at a church and somebody at the door says, sorry, there's no room in the inn. Who else heard that? That might have been the parents of Jesus on the night he was born. No room in the inn. So you got to pre-register your seat and have your little e-pass on your cell phone or you can't get in. And of course, pastors are doing this not because they're saving lives, not because they're worried about health and well-being. No. This is just the new trendy thing to do. And that means you're not really a pastor or a leader, you're a hireling. Hirelings, they're copycats. Monkey see, monkey do. Put your man of God pants on, open up your church and have church like normal. Give people a sense of normalcy, real normalcy, and people will respond. Why do you think all of a sudden John MacArthur is looked at as like the new Billy Graham of the evangelical movement? Because he's a leader, he's taking a stand, and he's moving forward. Donald Trump is a leader, he takes a stand, he moves forward. Joe Biden is basically saying that his will be a presidency by committee. He's going to listen to the experts, he's going to do this, he's going to do that. Now the funny thing is, when he was vice president under Obama, we're constantly being told he was the one in charge of the economic recovery, which might explain why we didn't have one. He was in charge of this, and he was and during the Obama administration, I did this for Obama, and I did that. The white guy taking care of the black guy. Or I should say, the white guy was there to make the black guy look good because the black guy wasn't capable of doing it. That's actually what Biden is saying. I wish somebody in the African American community, in particular within the media of the African American community, would pick up on that. These are not just little slips that he makes when he says, hey man, if you don't vote for me, you ain't black. These aren't little, you have to understand, this dude underneath his so-called liberalism is at heart an absolute racist. He is a panderer to the black community because in the end, he's your slave master. He doesn't think you're smart enough to think or do it for yourself. So he's just going to give you free housing, free healthcare, free, because after all, you're incapable of doing those things for yourself. And, yes, Barack Obama, the first African-American president, but the only reason there was any success to what he did, me, the white guy, I was there, I did it for him. That's what Joe Biden is saying. And he never gets pressed on that. He never gets called on that. But now all of a sudden when he's going to become the president, or that's what he wants, well, I'm going to let the experts tell me this, and I'm going to listen to this, I'm going to do that, and President Trump listens to everybody and then makes a decision and he moves forward. That's leadership. And I'm telling you, that's what draws people to him. That said, George Snuffleupagus asked Biden absolutely nothing about the bombshell, the nuclear bomb that's literally going off in the media right now over the Hunter Biden emails linking his dad to Burisma. I mean, you have Twitter and Facebook taking articles down not from some crackpot wingnut, but literally from publications like the New York Post. George, you couldn't have thought of just one question? Mr. Vice President, as you know, everyone's talking about this. Do you have something you would like to say to the American people about it? That at least would have been something. You asked nothing, nada. You did press him a little bit on court packing, which basically he said in code, if they put Amy Coney Barrett through, he'll pack the courts. That's basically the answer he gave. But I thought it was interesting, because, I believe Savannah, somebody did this, interrupted Donald Trump 65 times while he was answering. He was actually debating her. George Snuffleupagus just let Biden talk and talk and talk and talk. And on the one hand, they want to try to show you that, see, he was on his game. He is cognitive. He's in command. He knows policy. He's also as boring as watching paint dry. Now, he was pressed a little bit on fracking.
You said you don't want to ban fracking. As you know, it's an important issue here in Pennsylvania. Not everyone buys your denial. A member of the Boilermakers Local 154, Sean Steffney, was quoted in the New York Times today saying, you can't have it both ways. It says you can't meet your goal to end fossil fuels without ending fracking. What do you say to people like Sean who doubt your denial because they think you want to keep that promise?
Tell them the Boilermakers overwhelmingly endorse me, okay? What I would do is I would stop giving tax breaks and subsidizing oil. We don't need to subsidize oil any longer, number one. We should stop that and save billions of dollars over time. What I would also do with regard to, the difference between me and the new Green Deal.
Are you for it or against it? You say you're not for it, but in your website it says you call it a crucial framework. The Green New Deal.
My deal is a crucial framework.
And yeah, that's about the extent of it. More double speak from Joe when he can hold a cognitive thought together. And I think the American people have wised up to that. Say one thing, do another once he's in there. He's going to owe way too many people. He's pandered to way too many groups. He can't make everybody happy. And these union guys, they know that under the Obama-Biden administration, their jobs went overseas. And if you vote for Joe Biden, that is a vote to basically outsource all your jobs again. See, this is where I did something on my personal Facebook page, and it's actually going to become part of my sermon for Sunday, which this Sunday, by the way, we're honoring law enforcement officers. It's Back the Blue Sunday. So if you live in the Bowling Green, Ohio area, come on over, Plain Church, Bowling Green, Ohio. But part of the sermon I'm going to deal with is, some people have a hard time voting for Donald Trump or supporting Donald Trump because it comes down to you don't like his personality. Yet, a recent Gallup poll, most Americans feel they are much better off under Donald Trump's presidency than they were under Barack Obama's. That's not good news for the Democrats on any stretch. So what they try to do is they try to keep getting you to hate the man. And I know that there are Republicans and Christian Republicans who you are offended by things he says and the way he says it and his rude and his crude and his tweets, etc. So I want you to put all that aside for a moment. And I'm going to give you a little sneak preview on my Preach Sunday. Stop making this about personality. So in other words, don't think about who you're going to vote for. Think about what you're voting for. See me, I'm voting for the preservation of the First Amendment. Not only the freedom of the press, but the freedom not to be censored by all the media platforms, the freedom to be able to speak, the freedom to be able to preach, to worship, and to gather together to worship without fear of government intrusion and ridiculous mandates like, well, if you have a choir, they got to wear a mask, and you can only have 10 people in your building, and they got to sign in, and we got to have their address, and we got to know how long they were there, and who they talked to. That is such a dismantling of our constitutional freedom. So I'm voting for the preservation of my First Amendment, the defense and preservation of the Second Amendment. I am voting for border security and legal immigration, and I can go on and on and on and on and on, and I'll be doing another monologue about that. Get past the personality and start deciding what, not just who, what you're voting for. Now, people said the president got a little testy with Savannah over the white supremacy question. He has been asked this 400 times. Yet Joe Biden never gets asked to decry Antifa, MS-13. He's never asked to decry, really, in any substantive way, the rioters and the looters and what they're doing to American cities across the country. In fact, members of his own campaign bailed many of them out of jail. Isn't that interesting? Media didn't talk about that either. So the president constantly gets grilled on this question, and he really put it back on her. And I mean, he went at her in a way that some people say he was sexist, he was mean. Look at how he's talking to her.
I'm sure they'll ask you the white supremacy question. I denounce white supremacy.
Okay.
And frankly, you want to know something? I denounce Antifa, and I denounce these people on the left that are burning down our cities that are run by Democrats who don't
All right,
know what
while
they're
we're
doing.
denouncing, let me ask you about QAnon.
I just don't know about QAnon.
You do know.
I don't know. No, I don't know. What I do hear about it is they are very strongly against pedophilia. And I agree with that. I mean, I do agree with that, and I agree
but
with it
there's not
very
a
strongly.
satanic pedophile
I have
cult
no
being run
idea.
by.
I know
You
nothing
don't
about
know
that.
Okay.
No, I don't know
You
that.
just
and
this
neither
week.
do you know that.
Okay.
I love that. Well, you don't know either. Again, you want the president to listen to experts. Well, what makes you an expert? And you see, these are these gotcha kind of where they want him to decry a group of people that, like he said, I don't know who all these groups are. They kind of pop up out of nowhere. The one thing I do know is they're against pedophilia. I'm against pedophilia. And she wanted him to go on record and say, well, you just finally come out and say that there's no bunch of demon people that are trying to overtake the country and endorse pedophilia and Democrats. Well, there actually are those kind of people. And again, I did a whole video on this months ago, probably a year ago or more, during the whole Corey Feldman thing. You better believe that's very real. And the president was wise to kind of steer away from that because it would have detracted from the town hall overall. So his answer was spot on. It was perfect. But let me just throw this in here as a little caveat. It is very real. It doesn't matter whether you believe it or I believe it. These people really believe that they are occultists, and that when they destroy innocence, it's why they're all pro-abortion. It's why they're into pedophilia. I'm talking about Satanists, that is. They believe that when they destroy innocence, they receive power. It bolsters their authority, and they derive, if you will, energy from that, the destruction of innocence. And again, it doesn't matter whether you believe it or I believe it. People who are part of that believe it. That's explained. The president pushing back on Savannah is why women love him. And I know some of you are already starting to grit your teeth. Ladies, bear with me. Women like men who are men. Now, that doesn't mean that we can't also be compassionate, that we shouldn't be caring, and that at times sensitive. But at the end of the day, women who are attracted to men want to be with a man, not a marshmallow. And all of the liberal, idealistic bullhawk that's now being taught in colleges across the country, where we are emasculating the American male and talking about toxic masculinity. Honestly, you look at some of these males, I guess that's the word for them. I had to deal with one last night. I went to Best Buy. I decided I was tired of looking at my vinyl records. I want to play them. And I had a really good turntable, but it's been years since I've had an actual stereo amp and good speakers. So I went to Best Buy last night. Yeah, good luck actually finding anything in the store. I love how the answer is always, well, we can order it. Well, I could sit home and order it and wait a couple of days for Amazon to bring it. The idea was I was in the mood for it now. I wanted to be able to walk in here, buy it, and take it home and do it now. That's another rant for another day. But anyway, I ended up getting that. And young guy helping me out. And again, young kid. But again, just the lack of masculinity. I fear for our country. if we ever are really involved in another epic world war, we're done. We're done. Because young men have been, and it's so ingrained in them now, they have, and so, though on the one hand, leftist women want to vilify the John Wayne, Clint Eastwood stereotype and the Donald Trumps, on the other hand, there are days that, they're tofu eating, into nature and validating all of their feelings, males that they do know. There are days they just look at him and say, please be a man. Please just be a man. And let me tell you, this at the town hall last night just about made every, I'm going to use a Rush Limbaugh word here, feminazi lesbian explode.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. President.
Thank you very much.
I have to say, you have a great smile.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, he does. You're so handsome when you smile. Okay.
You see him get almost like a schoolboy there, kind of blushing. Oh, shucks. I mean, you talk about capturing the president in a moment. And you talk about transparent and vulnerable. Boom, that was it. That should have been the headline today. I mean, that was just great. I mean, he's just very, he was really taken back by that in a good way. And, her saying, you're a good looking guy, shucks. But again, let me tell you, because you want to talk about stereotypical behavior, you saying that what I'm saying about women liking Trump is sexist. Let me tell you, in that moment, that woman could have asked President Trump for $1 million and he'd have given it to her. See, I don't know why we are so scared in this country to admit there are real differences between men and women. The women's liberation movement spent so much time trying to tell us we're all the same, we're all the same, we're all the same. Then these same liberals tell us to celebrate diversity. Well, if we're all the same, how can there be diversity? And there is a difference between men and women, how we think, how we act, how we react. And yes, I don't want to speak overly general in that area because there are certain things that we are very much in common with one another. But I have taught for years on marriage, done marriage seminars, etc. And it's some of the most fun preaching and teaching I do. Women want a man who knows how to be romantic and thoughtful and, bring flowers home and do something spontaneous and show her constantly that you're thinking about her and that she is on your mind and that you love her. She wants to be romanced. And guys aren't so much into romance, but I'll tell you, ladies, the way you romance a guy is not with a box of chocolate or flowers. Stroke his ego. Oh. Let me tell you something. Genesis 1, in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth, and we go through the litany of creation. And at the end of each day, you talk about the maleness of God in a way that we could understand. Because God is spirit, but helping us to understand him and relate to him, he presents himself in the male. And at the end of each day of creation, and God saw that it was good. In other words, typical guy. Look at a guy who's just built something in his garage. I mean, even if it's crappy, he steps back and looks at it and goes, look at what I just built. I'm telling you, for me, I get done mowing the lawn. First thing I do is go in the house, grab a bottle of water, go out and stand on the back porch and just drink that water and look at the grass I've conquered. Look at how meticulous I've got every blade moving in the same direction, and the flower beds look good and the shrubs look good, and it is good. My wife will come in and say, babe, the lawn looks great. In that moment, she can have anything she wants, period. So to admit that this is how we operate is not sexist. It is not demeaning to either sex to admit there are certain ways that we naturally interact with one another. And the president is very decisively a leader. That doesn't always mean you agree with the leader. I have worked under individuals, worked for leaders that I flat out thought that they were completely wrong. And in a manner in which was proper, I told them so in private, never in a way to embarrass them. But if this was the decision they made, then my working for them, I had two choices: either quit or do it. And do it to the best of my ability to try to make that as successful as possible. Leaders lead. President Trump isn't always right about everything. He's been right about most stuff, and he has a proven track record, which is exactly why he got a very interesting endorsement.
I'm going to let you in on something. The Democrats just think that they're entitled to the Latino vote. They think that we just have to hand it over to them. That's right. We sure as hell don't. Así mismo. Así mismo. They got to show us what they can do for us, what they can do for our communities. We're not going to buy the same wolf tickets and false promises that destroyed great countries like Venezuela and Cuba. It's not going to happen. You know what else is not going to work for them? Playing Despacito on your cell phone to pander to us. Hell no. You got to give us some credit for having heads on our shoulders. I'm going to wrap this up with some words of Barack Obama. He said elections have consequences. That is true. And those words have never been more true than they are today. We either re-elect President Trump and keep America great. Amen. Or we let Joe Biden destroy the greatest country the world has ever seen. Now, I'm a professional athlete and I've been one for most of my life, so I've always seen things through a sports lens. That makes Donald Trump our head coach. And before the global pandemic, we were winning Super Bowls. And when you're winning Super Bowls, you don't fire the coach. Doesn't matter if you don't like the plays he runs, the players he puts on the field, or what he says on Twitter. You sure as hell don't replace him for another coach that's been in the business for 47 years at every level and never won a game.
I love it. 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 That's it for this little rant. Thank you so much for watching. Give us a thumbs up. Give us a like. Put some comments down there. I do read them. Make sure you have smacked the bell and clicked the word all to get notification of my next rant.